I've always been a skeptic, you know. I never bought into the whole UFO craze. It was just people's wild imaginations and blurry photos, or so I thought. But then, that one night changed everything, and now I can't shake the fear that I wasn't alone in that darkness. It was a typical evening. I had just finished a long day at the office and was unwinding with a glass of wine in my dimly lit living room. Rain tapped lightly against the window, creating a soothing background noise. I'd always found comfort in the rain, the way it washed away the day's troubles. As I sat there, lost in thought, I noticed something odd outside my window. A soft pulsating light, like a distant star, hovered in the cloudy sky. It was too bright and too low to be a star, but I dismissed it as a plane or perhaps a helicopter, though the thought of it hovering so strangely nagged at me. I sipped my wine and tried to put it out of my mind, but that light was persistent, like a beacon calling me into the night. It drew me to the window, and as I gazed at it, I realized that it wasn't alone. It was joined by more lights, forming an eerie triangle in the sky. An uneasy feeling washed over me. I hadn't been a believer in alien abductions or close encounters, but those lights were too strange to ignore. I grabbed my phone and stepped outside to get a better look, my curiosity driving me to the edge of my sanity. The air was damp and cool, and the rain left a faint drizzle on my skin. The lights above me had now transformed into a geometric pattern, and they seemed to be getting closer. I raised my phone to record what was happening. The lights danced and swirled, and I was too entranced to notice that my phone screen flickered and died. And then, in the blink of an eye, those lights were right above me. The world spun into chaos as I felt a force pulling me upward, and my body was swallowed by darkness. Panic gripped my heart, and my mind raced with thoughts of what could be happening. It was like a nightmare, one that I couldn't wake up from. When I regained consciousness, I was in a place that defied all logic and reason. I was lying on a cold metallic surface in a room that seemed to stretch into infinity. The walls were curved and adorned with strange, luminescent symbols that cast an eerie bluish glow. The air was heavy, and I could barely breathe. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to make sense of it all. As I sat up, I realized that I wasn't alone. Surrounding me were other people, all in a state of shock, their faces pale and their eyes wide with fear. It was as if we were all part of some twisted experiment, trapped in an alien nightmare. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words stuck in my throat. It was as if the very air around us was sapping our will and our ability to resist. And then they appeared. The beings that entered the room were unlike anything I could have ever imagined. Tall and slender, their skin was a pale, translucent blue, and their eyes were large and black, devoid of any emotion. They moved with an otherworldly grace, and their mere presence sent shivers down my spine. I watched as they approached each person in the room, their long, delicate fingers touching our foreheads, as if scanning our thoughts. It was invasive and terrifying, and I couldn't help but wonder what they were searching for. As they reached me, their eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a surge of fear unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was as if they were peering into the very depths of my soul, and I couldn't hide the fear that coursed through me. And then they spoke. Their voices were like a discordant melody, a series of high-pitched tones and clicks that reverberated through my mind. It was a language I couldn't understand, and yet their intentions were clear. They were searching for something deep within us. I felt their probing, their intrusion into my thoughts, and I couldn't stop the memories that flooded to the surface. Memories of my skepticism, my disbelief in the existence of extraterrestrial life. In that moment, I realized the horrifying truth. They had abducted us not just to study us, but to plant a seed of belief in the existence of their kind. They were using us as messengers, as living proof that they were real, and that the world needed to acknowledge their presence. As the beings finished their examination, they retreated, leaving us in a state of shock and confusion. The room began to fade, the metallic walls melting away, and I found myself back in the dark, rainy night where it had all begun. I stumbled back into my house, drenched and disoriented. The clock on the wall showed that only minutes had passed, but it felt like an eternity. My skepticism had been shattered, replaced by an undeniable reality. I had been an unwitting pawn in an extraterrestrial agenda, and I had witnessed things that no one would ever believe. Now I'm left with the knowledge that we are not alone in the universe, and that the truth is far stranger and more terrifying than anything I could have ever imagined. The fear of the unknown, of what lies beyond the stars, lingers in the darkest corners of my mind, a constant reminder that the world is not as it seems. All right, sit down, my friend, because I've got a story that's going to chill you to the bone. You know, they say that truth is stranger than fiction, and this is one of those tales that make you question reality. It all started one warm summer night, a few years back. I was out in the countryside, stargazing with a group of friends. The sky was clear, and the Milky Way stretched above us like a cosmic highway. We laughed and pointed out constellations, blissfully unaware that our lives were about to take a wild turn. As the night wore on, the air seemed to grow still. An eerie calm settled over us. It's funny how you can sense something's off, even when everything appears normal. I looked at my friends, and their expressions mirrored my unease. That's when it happened. The sky, which had been filled with the shimmering dance of stars, suddenly went dark. No, it wasn't a cloud passing by. It was as if someone had thrown a celestial curtain over the universe. We froze, unable to tear our eyes away from the unnatural darkness above. I remember thinking that this had to be some sort of celestial event, like a solar eclipse, even though it made no sense. It was nighttime, after all, and then it descended upon us, a blinding light that came from nowhere, illuminating the field and casting our long distorted shadows. The light enveloped us, bathing everything in a ghostly ethereal glow. I could hear my friends screaming, but their voices seemed muffled and far away. That's when they arrived, beings that were nothing like the benign, big-eyed, green figures we'd seen in movies. They were taller than any human, with elongated limbs and a cold, calculating presence. Their eyes were dark voids that seemed to absorb the very light around them. I felt small and insignificant in their presence. Before I knew it, I was floating, not in the peaceful, weightless way that astronauts describe, but in a terrifying, otherworldly manner. I was being drawn upward, toward the hovering craft, and all I could do was stare in horror as the world I knew grew smaller and smaller. I remember thinking about my family, my friends, and everything I'd never get to do. I wasn't ready to leave this world, to leave them behind. It was a feeling of helplessness and despair that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Inside the spacecraft, things became even stranger. It was like a sterile metal chamber, with a low hum in the background that sent shivers down my spine. There were no visible doors or openings, yet I was somehow inside. The beings surrounded me, and I could feel their thoughts probing my mind. It was invasive, like they were dissecting my very soul. I saw flashes of memories, my entire life laid bare before them. I tried to resist, to shield my thoughts, but it was like trying to stop a tsunami with my bare hands. That's when I realized the truth. These beings weren't visitors from another planet. They were interdimensional, transcending our understanding of reality. They didn't want to study us or make contact. They wanted something else, something I couldn't comprehend. Suddenly, the spacecraft shuddered, and I was thrown to the floor. I could hear the aliens chattering in their incomprehensible language, their dark eyes filled with a sense of urgency. I had no idea what was happening, but it felt like the ship was in turmoil. And then, a voice filled my mind, not one of the aliens, but something else, something ancient and powerful. It told me that I needed to escape, that the beings were after a part of my consciousness that they could never truly possess. As the ship rocked and trembled, I summoned every ounce of strength and willpower. With a burst of energy, I propelled myself forward, escaping the chamber and tumbling into a narrow, dimly lit corridor. Alien beings pursued me, their forms shifting and morphing as if reality itself was warping around them. I knew I had to find a way out, to return to my world, but the ship was like a labyrinth of endless identical passages. As I ran, the corridor seemed to stretch out infinitely before me, like a nightmarish dream. The walls began to close in, and I could feel the life being squeezed out of me. I was trapped in a nightmarish maze, pursued by creatures from beyond the stars. Just when I thought I was doomed, the corridor suddenly opened into a blinding white light. I staggered forward and found myself back in the field, where it had all begun. The night sky had returned, and the spacecraft was gone. I fell to the ground, gasping for breath, my body bruised and battered. I had escaped, but I knew that I'd been forever changed by the experience. I couldn't forget the beings, their inscrutable motives, or the voice that had guided me to escape. And here is the plot twist, my friend. As I lay in that field, I realized that I was no longer alone. The beings had left something inside me, a fragment of their consciousness. I could feel their presence in my mind, a haunting, inescapable presence that would forever bind me to the unknown. I wish I could say that the experience ended that night, that I returned to my ordinary life, but the truth is far more unsettling. I continue to have encounters with the beings, brief moments of contact that remind me that they're always there, just beyond the veil of our reality. So the next time you look up at the night sky, remember that the universe is vast and mysterious, and that there are things out there that defy our understanding. And who knows, one day you might find yourself on a journey to the other side of reality, where the boundaries of time and space blur, and the true horrors of the unknown are revealed. You know, there are some things in life that you never think will happen to you. Alien abductions, for instance. We've all heard the stories, seen the movies, but I was the ultimate skeptic. Until that fateful night, it was a typical evening. I had just finished a late shift at the office, and all I wanted to do was get home, eat a microwave dinner, and catch up on some TV. The last thing on my mind was extraterrestrial encounters. Little did I know, the universe had other plans. As I stepped out of the elevator and into the dimly lit parking garage, I was immediately struck by a sense of unease. You know that feeling when you're being watched? Well, I had it in spades. My footsteps echoed through the concrete labyrinth, the only sound in that eerie silence. I tried to shake off the irrational fear as I approached my car. That's when I saw it. A blinding light, unlike any I'd ever seen, filled the garage. It was like a miniature sun, and it cast stark, sharp shadows on everything around it. The sensation of dread intensified, but I couldn't look away. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, and then everything went black. I awoke in a place that defied logic, in a world beyond my wildest dreams or worse nightmares. The room I was in was small and metallic, and it was filled with an otherworldly bluish glow. The air was heavy, and it felt charged, like static electricity was running through every inch of my body. It was then that I realized I wasn't alone. There were others in the room with me, each in a state of shock and confusion. We all exchanged terrified glances, silently questioning what had brought us here. The door slid open, revealing beings that defied the laws of nature. Tall and willowy, their skin had a pearlescent quality, reflecting the eerie blue light. Their eyes, large and black, seemed to pierce through to my very soul. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, paralyzed by their presence. These beings didn't speak in any language I could understand. Their voices were like an eerie, dissonant melody, rising and falling in an alien cadence. It sent shivers down my spine, and I couldn't help but wonder what they wanted. As they approached, I could feel their thoughts probing my mind, invasive and uninvited. I saw flashes of memories, intimate moments, and secrets laid bare before them. They weren't studying us, they were dissecting us, tearing through the very fabric of our existence. The fear was overwhelming, and I couldn't stop the thoughts and emotions from flooding to the surface. Memories of loved ones, regrets, and unfulfilled dreams played like a cruel slideshow in my mind. As they examined each person in the room, I realized the horrifying truth. They were searching for something within us, something deep and intrinsic. It was as if they were trying to extract a part of our consciousness, to take it for themselves. And then it happened. The room shuddered, and the beings reacted with a sense of urgency. They gathered in the center of the chamber, communicating in their strange, melodic language. It was clear that something had gone wrong, something beyond their control. As the ship trembled, I knew this was my chance to escape. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed myself forward, lunging toward the doorway. The beings barely had time to react, their long, slender forms reaching out in vain as I slipped past them. I stumbled into a narrow corridor, my heart pounding in my chest. It was like a maze, the walls curving and shifting as if they were alive. I had no idea where I was going, but I knew I had to find a way out. The corridor seemed endless, each step taking me farther from the chamber where the beings were. I felt like I was running for my life, the walls closing in on me. Panic gnawed at the edges of my mind, and I pushed myself to go faster. But just when I thought I was trapped, the corridor opened up into blinding white light. I stepped into it, and the world seemed to spin and shift around me. It was like being caught in a vortex, and I had no control over my own movements. And then I was back on Earth. I fell to the ground, gasping for breath, the cool grass against my skin. I was in a field, the night sky stretching out above me, and the spacecraft was gone. I couldn't believe it. It was like waking up from a nightmare, back in the world I knew. I stumbled to my feet, disoriented and shaken. I had escaped, but I couldn't forget the memories of what had happened. The beings, their incomprehensible motives, and the haunting sense that they were still out there. Days turned into weeks, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching, waiting. The memories of the abduction haunted me, and I knew that the truth was far stranger than I could have ever imagined. And here's the twist, my friend. The nightmares didn't stop. They got worse. Vivid dreams of being back in that chamber, the probing thoughts, the dissection of my consciousness. It was as if the beings had left a part of themselves behind, a connection that transcended time and space. As the dreams continued, I began to understand the truth. I hadn't escaped the aliens, I had become one with them. My consciousness was now linked to theirs, and I was a part of their world, a world beyond human comprehension. It was a chilling realization, one that left me with more questions than answers. What did they want with us? Why had they chosen me? And what was the purpose of this connection? So, my friend, the next time you look up at the night sky, remember that the universe is vast and mysterious, and there are forces out there that we can't begin to understand. The truth is out there, waiting to be discovered, and sometimes it's far more terrifying than we could ever imagine.